What if I told you that the difference between extraordinary success and mediocrity isn't talent, luck, or even hard work, but something far more controllable? Something that every single elite performer, from Olympic champions to billionaire CEOs, from Navy SEALs to world-renowned artists, has mastered completely? The answer lies in their mental edge. While most people focus on external strategies, techniques, and tactics, elite performers understand a fundamental truth that separates them from everyone else. Success is an inside job. The battlefield where victories are won or lost isn't on the field, in the boardroom, or on stage. It's in the 6 inches between your ears. Every day, millions of people work just as hard as the champions. They put in the hours, they follow the same routines, they even have access to the same information and resources. Yet they remain stuck in mediocrity, while others soar to unprecedented heights. The difference isn't what they do, it's how they think. Elite performers have developed a completely different operating system in their minds. One that automatically generates winning behaviors, unstoppable confidence, and the ability to perform under any pressure. This audiobook will reveal the exact mental frameworks, thought patterns, and psychological strategies that separate the top 1% from everyone else. You'll discover why some people collapse under pressure while others thrive. Why some athletes choke in crucial moments while champions rise to the occasion, and why some entrepreneurs give up at the first sign of failure while others use setbacks as stepping stones to greater success. But here's what makes this different from every other performance book you've encountered. We're not just going to tell you what elite performers do, we're going to rewire your brain to think exactly like they do. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand the mental edge, you'll possess it. And once you do, everything changes. Chapter 1. The Elite Mindset. Why champions think in a different language. The first thing you need to understand about elite performers is that they literally speak a different language than everyone else. Not a foreign language, but a mental language that shapes every thought, every decision, and every response to the world around them. While most people think in terms of problems, elite performers think in terms of opportunities. While average people see obstacles, champions see stepping stones. While others focus on what could go wrong, elite minds are laser-focused on what needs to go right. This isn't just positive thinking or motivational nonsense. This is a fundamental rewiring of cognitive processing that creates entirely different neural pathways in the brain. Neuroscience research from Stanford University shows that elite performers' brains actually light up differently when faced with challenges compared to average performers. Where most people's brains activate fear and stress centers, elite brains immediately engage problem-solving and opportunity recognition regions. Let's break down the core components of this elite mental language. First, elite performers have completely eliminated victim language from their vocabulary. You will never hear a champion say, "I can't control this," or "This always happens to me," or "I don't have what it takes." These phrases literally don't exist in their mental dictionary because they understand that every word you speak to yourself becomes a command to your subconscious mind. Instead, elite performers speak in what psychologists call agency language. They use phrases like, "What can I control here?" and "How can I use this?" and "What does this make possible?" This isn't just semantics, it's neurological programming. Every time you use agency language, You're training your brain to scan for solutions rather than dwelling on problems. You're literally building neural highways that lead to action and empowerment. The second component of elite mental language is future-focused certainty. While most people speak about their goals with uncertainty, using words like, "I hope," "maybe," or "I'll try," elite performers speak about their success as if it's already predetermined. They don't say, "I hope to win the championship." They say, "When I win the championship." They don't say, "Maybe I'll build a successful business." They say, "My business will revolutionize this industry." This isn't arrogance or delusion. It's strategic programming of the reticular activating system, the part of your brain that determines what you notice and what opportunities you recognize. When you speak about success with certainty, your brain begins to filter reality to support that certainty. You start noticing resources, connections, and possibilities that were always there but invisible to an uncertain mind. The third element is present moment ownership. Elite performers take complete responsibility for their current situation, regardless of external circumstances. They don't say, "The referee made a bad call," or "The market conditions are terrible," or "My team let me down." They say, "What do I need to do right now to influence the outcome?" This mental shift from external blame to internal power is perhaps the most crucial difference between champions and everyone else. But here's where it gets really interesting. Elite performers also have a completely different relationship with failure and setbacks. In their mental language, there is no such thing as failure, only feedback. They don't say, "I failed at that business venture." They say, "That business venture taught me exactly what doesn't work, which brings me closer to what does work." This reframing isn't just psychological comfort, it's strategic advantage. While others are paralyzed by the fear of failure, elite performers are accelerated by the certainty that every outcome provides valuable intelligence. The fourth component is process-focused language over outcome-focused language. Amateur performers constantly talk about the end result. "I want to make $1 million," or "I want to win the gold medal." Elite performers focus their language on the process. "I will master my sales system," or "I will perfect my technique daily." They understand that outcomes are byproducts of processes, and processes are what you can actually control. This process focus creates what psychologists call present moment mastery. Instead of being anxious about future results, elite performers become absorbed in optimizing current actions. This absorption creates flow states, those peak performance zones where time seems to slow down and everything becomes effortless. You can't access flow states while thinking about outcomes, only while immersed in process. The fifth element of elite mental language is growth-oriented interpretation. When faced with criticism or negative feedback, most people hear attack and judgment. Elite performers hear intelligence and opportunity. They don't say, "He's trying to tear me down." They say, "This feedback contains information I can use to improve." This mental translation turns every interaction into a potential advantage. Finally, elite performers speak in systems language rather than event language. They don't say, "I had a good day," or "I had a bad day." They say, "My systems produced these results." This systematic thinking prevents emotional reactivity and maintains focus on the variables that actually drive performance. When you think in systems, temporary setbacks become data points rather than emotional events. The transformation begins the moment you start monitoring your internal language. Listen to the words you use when talking to yourself about challenges, goals, and setbacks. Are you speaking the language of victims or the language of champions? Are you programming your brain for limitation or for possibility? The choice is yours, but the choice determines everything. Chapter 2. The Pressure Paradox. How elite performers turn stress into rocket fuel. One of the most fascinating discoveries in performance psychology is that elite performers don't experience less pressure than everyone else. They experience more pressure and transform it into their greatest advantage. While average performers are crushed by pressure, champions are launched by it. This isn't because they're naturally more resilient or genetically gifted with better stress tolerance. It's because they've learned to fundamentally redefine what pressure means and how to use it as fuel for extraordinary performance. The first thing elite performers understand is that pressure is not the enemy of performance. It's the catalyst for peak performance. The human nervous system is designed to operate at its highest level under stress. Your heart pumps more efficiently. Your brain processes information faster. Your muscles generate more power. And your focus becomes laser sharp. The problem isn't the presence of pressure, it's the interpretation of pressure. Most people have been conditioned to see pressure as a threat to avoid, while elite performers see pressure as an opportunity to access superhuman capabilities. Let's examine the neuroscience behind this transformation. When you perceive a situation as threatening, your brain activates the sympathetic nervous system and floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. But here's the critical difference. The same physiological response that creates anxiety and panic in most people creates heightened performance in elite minds. The difference is entirely psychological. Elite performers have trained themselves to interpret the physical sensations of pressure as signals that they're about to perform at their best. This process is called arousal reappraisal, and it's one of the most powerful mental skills you can develop. Instead of trying to calm down when feeling pressure, elite performers learn to get excited. They don't say, "I need to relax," or "I need to stay calm." They say, "This energy is exactly what I need to dominate." They've learned that the goal isn't to eliminate pressure, but to channel it. Elite performers also understand the concept of optimal arousal zones. Every high-level activity has a specific level of physiological activation that produces peak performance. Too little arousal leads to sluggish, unfocused performance. Too much arousal leads to overthinking and tension. Elite performers learn to calibrate their arousal level to match the demands of their specific performance. They don't try to stay calm during high-stakes situations. They try to reach their optimal activation state. But the real secret of pressure mastery goes deeper than physiological management. Elite performers have completely rewritten their relationship with stakes and consequences. Most people become overwhelmed by pressure because they're focused on everything they could lose. Elite performers become energized by pressure because they're focused on everything they could gain. They don't think, "What if I fail and embarrass myself?" They think, "What if I succeed and change my life forever?" This shift from loss-focused thinking to gain-focused thinking activates entirely different brain networks. Loss-focused thinking triggers the brain's threat detection system, which narrows attention and creates conservative, defensive behavior. Gain-focused thinking activates the brain's reward system, which expands possibilities and creates aggressive, opportunistic behavior. Same pressure, opposite response, completely different results. Elite performers also use a technique called pressure inoculation. Instead of avoiding high-pressure situations, they actively seek them out and use them as training opportunities. They understand that the only way to become comfortable with pressure is to repeatedly expose yourself to it under controlled conditions. Navy SEALs don't become calm under fire by avoiding stressful situations. They become calm under fire by training in conditions that are more stressful than actual combat. This principle applies to every field. Elite athletes practice their skills while fatigued, distracted, and under time pressure. Top salespeople role-play the most difficult conversations with demanding clients. Master performers in every domain understand that training under pressure inoculates you against pressure in real performance situations. Another crucial element of pressure mastery is what psychologists call present moment anchoring. Under pressure, most people's minds race to future catastrophes or past failures. Elite performers have developed the ability to lock their attention completely into the present moment. They don't think about the consequences of their performance while they're performing. They think only about the specific action required right now. This present moment focus isn't just mental discipline, it's strategic advantage. Peak performance requires complete absorption in process rather than outcome. The moment your mind starts calculating consequences, your performance degrades. Elite performers train their minds to become fascinated by process details under pressure. The higher the stakes, the more focused they become on the smallest elements of technique and execution. Elite performers also use pressure as a clarity filter. While most people become confused and scattered under pressure, champions use pressure to eliminate distractions and identify what truly matters. They ask themselves, if I only had one shot at this, what would I focus on? Pressure forces them to cut through noise and concentrate on the essential elements that drive success. Finally, elite performers understand that pressure is temporary, but the growth from handling pressure is permanent. Every time you successfully navigate a high-pressure situation, you expand your confidence and capabilities. You prove to yourself that you can handle more than you previously thought possible. This accumulated evidence of pressure mastery creates an unstoppable mindset, where you begin to seek out challenging situations rather than avoid them. The transformation happens when you stop running from pressure and start running toward it. When you begin to interpret physical tension as preparation for greatness rather than signs of impending failure. When you realize that the situations that make you most nervous are the situations that offer the greatest opportunity for growth and breakthrough performance. Chapter 3. The Failure Factory. How champions use setbacks to build unstoppable momentum. If you want to understand the difference between elite performers and everyone else, don't look at how they handle success. Look at how they handle failure. While most people are derailed by setbacks, destroyed by defeats, and paralyzed by mistakes, elite performers have developed a completely different relationship with failure that turns every setback into a setup for greater success. They don't just bounce back from failure. They use failure as raw material to build unstoppable momentum. The first thing you need to understand is that elite performers fail more than anyone else, not because they're worse at what they do, but because they attempt more, risk more, and push boundaries more aggressively than average performers. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team and missed more than 9 shots in his NBA career. Thomas Edison's teachers told him he was too stupid to learn anything, and he failed over 10 times before inventing the light bulb. Colonel Sanders was rejected 9 times before someone accepted his recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken. The difference isn't that elite performers avoid failure, it's that they've developed what psychologists call failure immunity. They've trained their brains to process setbacks in a completely different way than the average person. Where most people see failure as evidence of their limitations, elite performers see failure as intelligence about what doesn't work. Where most people interpret failure as a reason to quit, elite performers interpret failure as a reason to adjust strategy and try again. This failure immunity starts with a fundamental reframe of what failure actually means. In the elite mindset, failure doesn't exist as a permanent state or personal identity. There are only outcomes that provide information. They don't say, "I'm a failure," or "I failed." They say, "That approach didn't work," or "That outcome provided valuable data." This linguistic difference isn't just semantics. It's psychological protection that prevents failure from damaging self-concept and motivation. Elite performers also understand the concept of intelligent failure versus unintelligent failure. Unintelligent failure is making the same mistakes repeatedly without learning or adjusting. Intelligent failure is systematically testing hypotheses, gathering data from outcomes, and using that information to improve future performance. Elite performers become masters of intelligent failure, turning every setback into a stepping stone toward mastery. But here's where it gets really powerful. Elite performers don't just learn from their own failures. They learn from everyone's failures. They study the mistakes of others in their field, analyze what went wrong, and incorporate those lessons into their own strategy. This allows them to avoid many common pitfalls and accelerate their learning curve. While others repeat predictable mistakes, elite performers have already identified and prepared for those mistakes through vicarious learning. The secret of elite failure processing is what researchers call growth-oriented attribution. When something goes wrong, most people engage in what psychologists call person-focused attribution, meaning they blame their failure on fixed characteristics like talent, intelligence, or natural ability. They think, "I'm just not good enough," or "I don't have what it takes." This type of attribution is devastating because it suggests that failure is permanent and unchangeable. Elite performers engage in process-focused attribution, meaning they attribute failure to adjustable variables like effort, strategy, preparation, or technique. They think, "I need to train harder," or "I need to adjust my approach," or "I need better preparation." This type of attribution is empowering because it suggests that failure is temporary and controllable. Another critical component of elite failure mastery is emotional regulation during setbacks. Most people become emotionally reactive when faced with failure. They get angry, frustrated, disappointed, or depressed. These emotional states cloud judgment and prevent effective problem-solving. Elite performers have developed the ability to maintain emotional equilibrium during setbacks, allowing them to think clearly and respond strategically. This emotional regulation isn't about suppressing feelings or pretending that failure doesn't hurt. It's about processing emotions quickly and efficiently without letting them hijack decision-making. Elite performers Acknowledge the disappointment of failure. Feel it fully for a brief period, and then shift immediately into analytical mode to extract useful intelligence from the experience. Elite performers also use what's called failure forecasting to build psychological resilience before setbacks occur. They mentally rehearse potential failures and plan their responses in advance. This preparation prevents them from being caught off guard by setbacks and allows them to respond immediately with pre-planned strategies rather than emotional reactions. They know that failure is inevitable in any worthwhile pursuit, so they prepare for it strategically rather than hoping to avoid it. One of the most powerful failure processing techniques used by elite performers is called contrast enhancement. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, they use failure experiences to clarify what needs to go right. They ask questions like, what would the opposite of this failure look like? And what specific behaviors would prevent this outcome in the future? This process transforms failure from a source of discouragement into a source of clarity and direction. Elite performers also understand the concept of failure, momentum. While most people allow single failures to create negative spiral effects where one setback leads to another, elite performers use failures to create positive momentum. They see each failure as proof that they're pushing boundaries and attempting something worthwhile. Each failure becomes evidence of courage and ambition rather than evidence of inadequacy. The ultimate level of failure mastery is what elite performers call failure celebration. They actually celebrate failures that provide valuable learning or push them outside their comfort zones. They understand that the fastest path to mastery requires making mistakes quickly, learning rapidly, and iterating constantly. They've trained themselves to become excited about failures that contain useful intelligence because those failures accelerate their progress toward excellence. This doesn't mean elite performers enjoy failing or seek out failure for its own sake. It means they've developed the psychological skills to extract maximum value from inevitable setbacks while maintaining confidence and momentum. They've learned to fail forward rather than fail backward, to use failure as fuel rather than failure as poison. Chapter 4. The Attention Revolution. How Elite Performers Master the Ultimate Competitive Advantage. In the modern world, attention has become the ultimate competitive advantage. While everyone has access to the same information, the same tools, and the same opportunities, the ability to focus deeply and consistently separates elite performers from everyone else. The average person checks their phone 150 times per day, switches between tasks every 3 minutes, and can only sustain deep focus for about 12 minutes before becoming distracted. Elite performers have developed the ability to maintain laser-like focus for hours at a time, giving them an exponential advantage in skill development, decision-making, and execution. The first thing elite performers understand is that attention is not just a mental skill, it's the foundation of all other skills. Everything you want to achieve requires sustained focus. Mastery requires focused practice. Innovation requires focused thinking. Excellence requires focused execution. Without the ability to direct and maintain attention, all other strategies and techniques become irrelevant. This is why attention training is the first priority of every elite performer, regardless of their field. But here's what most people don't understand about attention. It's not a fixed resource that you either have or don't have. Attention is like a muscle that can be trained, strengthened, and developed through deliberate practice. Neuroscience research shows that focused attention training actually changes brain structure, increasing gray matter in regions associated with sustained attention, and decreasing activity in areas associated with mind wandering and distraction. Elite performers train their attention using techniques borrowed from meditation, military training, and cognitive science. The most fundamental practice is what's called single-point focus training. This involves selecting one object, sensation, or mental process, and maintaining complete attention on it for extended periods. When the mind wanders, which it will, you immediately redirect attention back to the chosen focus point. This simple practice, done consistently, develops extraordinary attention control. Advanced attention training includes attention switching drills, where you rapidly shift focus between different objects or tasks while maintaining complete absorption in each one. This develops mental agility and prevents attention from becoming rigid or stuck. Elite performers also practice peripheral awareness training, where they maintain sharp focus on a primary object while simultaneously monitoring peripheral information. This creates the ability to be completely focused yet aware of changing conditions. But attention mastery goes far beyond formal training exercises. Elite performers apply attention principles to every aspect of their performance. They understand that peak performance requires what psychologists call present moment absorption, complete immersion in current actions rather than mental wandering to past mistakes or future outcomes. This level of present moment focus creates flow states, those magical moments when performance becomes effortless and time seems to slow down. One of the most powerful attention techniques used by elite performers is called attention architecture. Instead of trying to maintain focus through willpower alone, they design their environment and schedule to support sustained attention. They eliminate distractions proactively rather than fighting them reactively. They batch similar tasks together to minimize attention switching. They create physical spaces that promote focus and avoid spaces that promote distraction. Elite performers also understand the concept of attention budgeting. They recognize that focused attention is a limited resource that must be allocated strategically. They identify their most important tasks and schedule them during their peak attention hours. They avoid wasting attention on trivial decisions or low-value activities. They protect their attention like they would protect their most valuable asset. Because for elite performers, attention is their most valuable asset. Another critical element of elite attention mastery is what's called distraction immunity. While most people are constantly pulled away from important tasks by phones, notifications, and random thoughts, elite performers have developed the ability to maintain focus despite environmental distractions. This isn't about eliminating all distractions, which is impossible in the modern world. It's about developing the mental strength to choose your focus regardless of what's happening around you. This distraction immunity is developed through what researchers call cognitive load training. Elite performers intentionally practice their skills while dealing with distractions, noise, and interruptions. Athletes train in noisy environments. Musicians practice while dealing with mistakes and technical problems. Business leaders make important decisions while managing multiple competing priorities. This training builds the ability to maintain focus under any conditions. Elite performers also use attention as a tool for emotional regulation. When faced with stress, anxiety, or negative emotions, They don't try to eliminate those feelings directly. Instead, they redirect their attention to productive actions and thoughts. They understand that you can't control emotions directly, but you can control attention. And controlling attention indirectly controls emotional states. This principle extends to confidence and motivation as well. Instead of trying to generate confidence through positive thinking, elite performers direct their attention to evidence of their capabilities and preparation. Instead of waiting for motivation to strike, they focus their attention on the specific actions that need to be taken. Attention direction becomes a tool for managing internal states and maintaining peak performance psychology. One of the most advanced attention skills is called meta-attention, the ability to monitor your attention while using it. Elite performers develop awareness of when their focus is sharp, when it's wandering, and what conditions optimize their concentration. This meta-awareness allows them to optimize their attention in real time and make adjustments before focus degrades significantly. Elite performers also understand that different types of tasks require different types of attention. Creative work requires broad, open attention that can make novel connections. Analytical work requires narrow, focused attention that can maintain precision. Interpersonal interactions require flexible attention that can read multiple social cues simultaneously. Masters of attention learn to match their attention style to the demands of the situation. The ultimate goal of attention mastery is what's called effortless focus, the ability to become completely absorbed in important activities without mental strain or resistance. This level of attention control transforms work from effort into flow, from struggle into ease. When you master attention, everything else becomes easier because you can direct your full mental resources toward any challenge or opportunity. Chapter 5. The Confidence Code. How elite performers build unshakable self-belief. Confidence is the multiplier that amplifies every other skill and capability you possess. With confidence, average abilities produce extraordinary results. Without confidence, even exceptional talents remain underutilized. Elite performers understand that confidence isn't something you're born with or something that happens to you. It's something you systematically build through specific mental practices and strategic experiences. They've decoded the confidence formula and use it to develop unshakable self-belief that persists regardless of circumstances. The first thing you need to understand is that confidence and competence operate in a feedback loop, but confidence often leads rather than follows. Most people think they need to become competent before they can be confident. Elite performers know that confidence accelerates competence development. When you believe in your ability to succeed, you take more risks, persist longer through difficulties, and perform at higher levels. This enhanced performance builds real competence, which reinforces confidence, creating an upward spiral of self-belief and capability. Real confidence is not based on positive thinking or self-delusion. Elite performers build what psychologists call evidence-based confidence, systematic proof of their capabilities that becomes unshakable because it's grounded in reality. They don't tell themselves they're great without evidence. They create evidence that they're great and use that evidence as fuel for unstoppable self-belief. The foundation of evidence-based confidence is what elite performers call competence stacking. Instead of trying to build confidence in complex skills all at once, they break those skills into smaller components and systematically master each component. Every small victory becomes evidence of capability. Every mastered skill becomes proof of learning ability. This accumulated evidence creates confidence that can't be shaken by temporary setbacks because it's built on a foundation of demonstrated competence. Elite performers also understand the difference between internal confidence and external confidence. Internal confidence is your private belief in your capabilities. External confidence is how that belief manifests in your behavior and communication. Most people focus on trying to appear confident without developing real internal confidence. Elite performers work from the inside out, building genuine self-belief that naturally expresses itself in confident behavior. One of the most powerful confidence-building techniques used by elite performers is called success archaeology. They systematically examine their past experiences to identify evidence of their capabilities that they may have overlooked or dismissed. They ask questions like, "What challenges have I already overcome?" and "What skills have I already developed?" and "What evidence already exists that I can achieve difficult things?" This process uncovers confidence, fuel that was always there but never properly recognized. Elite performers also use confidence visualization, but not in the way most people think. They don't just imagine success. They mentally rehearse the specific skills and behaviors that create success. They visualize themselves executing perfectly under pressure, making good decisions in difficult situations, and maintaining composure when things go wrong. This mental practice builds confidence in their ability to handle whatever situations arise. Another critical component of elite confidence is what researchers call process confidence versus outcome confidence. Most people try to build confidence in specific results. "I'm confident I'll win this game," or "I'm confident I'll close this sale." This type of confidence is fragile because outcomes depend on many variables outside your control. Elite performers build confidence in their processes. "I'm confident in my preparation," or "I'm confident in my ability to execute my strategy." Process confidence is unshakable because it's based on variables you can completely control. Elite performers also understand the power of confident communication in building self-belief. The way you speak about yourself and your capabilities programs your subconscious mind. Elite performers are careful to use language that reinforces confidence rather than undermines it. They don't say, "I hope I can do this," or "I'll try my best." They say, "I will handle this," and "I'm prepared for this challenge." This confident language isn't just external posturing. It's internal programming that builds real self-belief. One of the most advanced confidence techniques is called adversity reframing. While most people's confidence is damaged by difficult experiences, elite performers use adversity as evidence of their strength and resilience. They ask, "What does it say about me that I handled that challenge?" And "How has overcoming that difficulty made me stronger?" This reframing turns every obstacle into confidence fuel rather than confidence poison. Elite performers also practice what's called confidence contagion. They understand that confidence is influenced by the people you spend time with and the environments you inhabit. They deliberately associate with confident, high-performing individuals and avoid people who diminish their self-belief. They create environments that remind them of their capabilities and achievements rather than their limitations and failures. But here's where elite confidence gets really sophisticated. They develop what's called calibrated confidence. This means their self-belief is accurately matched to their actual capabilities. They're not overconfident in areas where they lack competence, and they're not underconfident in areas where they excel. This calibration comes from honest self-assessment and continuous feedback. Calibrated confidence prevents both the paralysis of self-doubt and the disasters of overconfidence. Elite performers also understand that confidence must be renewed and reinforced regularly. They don't assume that past achievements will automatically create future confidence. They continually seek new challenges that allow them to prove their capabilities to themselves. They understand that confidence is like physical fitness. It degrades without regular exercise and must be maintained through consistent practice. Finally, elite performers develop what might be called conditional independence in their confidence. While they use external feedback to calibrate their self-belief, their core confidence doesn't depend on external validation. They've learned to generate self-belief from internal standards and personal evidence, rather than requiring constant approval from others. This independence makes their confidence unshakable, because it's not dependent on factors outside their control. The ultimate goal is what elite performers call quiet confidence. Complete self-belief that doesn't need to announce itself or prove itself to others. This type of confidence is magnetic because it's genuine and unshakable. It allows you to take massive action without hesitation, persist through difficulties without doubt, and perform at your best without fear. When you possess this level of confidence, everything becomes possible because you believe everything is possible. Chapter 6. The Preparation Protocol. How elite performers engineer success before it happens. Most people think preparation is about practicing your skills and reviewing your strategy. Elite performers understand that preparation is about engineering your mental state, optimizing your psychology, and programming your nervous system for peak performance before you ever step into the arena. They don't just prepare their techniques, they prepare their minds. They don't just rehearse their actions, they rehearse their thoughts, emotions, and responses to every possible scenario. The foundation of elite preparation is what psychologists call mental rehearsal architecture. This goes far beyond simple visualization. Elite performers create detailed mental simulations of their performance that include not just the actions they'll take, but the thoughts they'll think, the emotions they'll feel, and the decisions they'll make in real time. They mentally rehearse their performance so thoroughly that when they enter the actual situation, their brain recognizes it as familiar territory rather than threatening unknown. This mental rehearsal follows a specific protocol that elite performers have refined through decades of research and application. First, they visualize perfect execution of their skills under ideal conditions. This programs their nervous system with the blueprint for excellence. Then they visualize successful performance under increasingly difficult conditions, including distractions, pressure, and unexpected challenges. This builds psychological resilience and prepares them to maintain their performance level regardless of circumstances. But here's where elite preparation gets sophisticated. They don't just rehearse success, they rehearse their response to potential problems. They mentally practice how they'll handle mistakes, equipment failures, unexpected opposition, and worst-case scenarios. This isn't negative thinking, it's strategic preparation. By rehearsing their responses to difficulties before they occur, they eliminate the shock and panic that derails most people when things go wrong. Elite performers also understand that preparation must address the entire performance ecosystem, not just the technical elements. They prepare their energy levels through strategic nutrition and sleep optimization. They prepare their emotional state through mindfulness and psychological priming techniques. They prepare their physical condition through targeted movement and activation protocols. They prepare their social environment by managing relationships and eliminating unnecessary drama or stress. One of the most powerful preparation techniques used by elite performers is called state anchoring. They identify the exact mental and emotional state that produces their best performance, and they develop specific triggers that can access that state on command. These might be physical movements, breathing patterns, mental phrases, or sensory cues that instantly shift them into peak performance psychology. This allows them to access their optimal state regardless of external circumstances. Elite performers also practice what's called scenario planning. For their mental preparation, they identify all the possible situations they might encounter during their performance and develop specific mental strategies for each scenario. If they're athletes, they prepare mentally for early leads, late comebacks, officiating controversies, and crowd hostility. If they're business leaders, they prepare for difficult questions, technical failures, and unexpected opposition. This comprehensive scenario planning eliminates the psychological uncertainty that creates anxiety and poor decision-making. Another critical component of elite preparation is attention choreography. They don't just decide what they'll focus on during their performance. They map out exactly where their attention will be directed at each phase of their performance. They know precisely when to focus internally on technique and when to focus externally on results. They know when to narrow their attention for precision tasks and when to broaden their attention for strategic awareness. This attention planning prevents the scattered focus that destroys performance under pressure. Elite performers also use preparation to program their recovery responses in advance. They know that every performance will include moments of fatigue, stress, or temporary confusion. Instead of hoping to handle these moments well, they prepare specific recovery protocols that they can implement automatically. They practice breathing techniques for managing stress, attention redirecting methods for regaining focus, and energy management strategies for sustaining performance over extended periods. The physical component of elite preparation extends far beyond technical skill practice. They prepare their nervous system through specific activation and relaxation protocols that optimize their arousal level for peak performance. They might use dynamic movement to increase activation for power-based activities, or they might use controlled breathing to decrease activation for precision-based activities. This physiological preparation ensures that their body is in the optimal state to execute their skills. Elite performers also prepare their decision-making systems in advance. They identify the key decisions they'll need to make during their performance and establish clear criteria for making those decisions quickly and accurately. They don't wait until the pressure of the moment to figure out their decision-making process. They develop decision trees and automatic triggers that allow them to make optimal choices without hesitation or doubt. One of the most advanced preparation strategies is called micro-preparation, where elite performers prepare not just for their overall performance, but for specific moments within that performance. They identify the most critical seconds or minutes of their performance and prepare those moments with extraordinary detail and specificity. This might be the final minutes of a competition, the crucial presentation slide, or the key negotiation point. By over-preparing these micro moments, they ensure excellence when it matters most. Elite performers also understand that preparation never ends. It evolves. After each performance, they analyze what preparation strategies worked and what could be improved. They continuously refine their preparation protocol based on results and feedback. They understand that preparation is not a fixed routine but a dynamic system that must adapt to changing challenges and improving capabilities. Finally, elite preparation includes what might be called confidence programming. They use their preparation time to reinforce their self-belief by reviewing their capabilities, recalling past successes, and affirming their readiness for the challenge ahead. This isn't just positive thinking. It's evidence-based confidence building that transforms preparation time into confidence fuel. The goal of elite preparation is to eliminate as much uncertainty as possible before performance begins. When you've mentally rehearsed every scenario, prepared for every challenge, and programmed every response, performance becomes execution of a well-rehearsed plan rather than improvisation under pressure. This level of preparation transforms high-stakes performance from terrifying unknown into familiar territory, where you can operate with complete confidence and control. Chapter 7. The Decision Engine. How elite performers make perfect choices under ultimate pressure. In the heat of intense competition, crucial business negotiations, or life-changing moments, most people's decision-making abilities collapse under pressure. They overthink simple choices, second-guess their instincts, and make critical errors that destroy months or years of preparation. Elite performers have developed a completely different decision-making system that not only functions under extreme pressure, but actually improves with higher stakes. They've learned to transform pressure into clarity and urgency into precision. The foundation of elite decision-making is what cognitive scientists call pre-decision architecture. Instead of trying to make complex decisions in high-pressure moments, elite performers make as many decisions as possible before pressure situations arise. They establish clear principles, criteria, and protocols that guide their choices automatically when thinking becomes difficult. This pre-decision framework eliminates hesitation and ensures consistent decision-making regardless of circumstances. Elite performers understand that decision-making under pressure operates on completely different principles than decision-making in calm, analytical environments. Under pressure, you don't have time for lengthy analysis, complex calculations, or extensive research. You need decision-making systems that are fast, reliable, and based on the most critical information available. This requires training your intuition to recognize patterns and respond accurately without conscious analysis. But here's what separates elite decision-making from amateur decision-making. Elite performers have learned to distinguish between decisions that require analysis and decisions that require instinct. Analytical decisions involve weighing multiple complex factors with unclear outcomes. Instinctive decisions involve recognizing patterns and responding based on trained expertise. The biggest decision-making errors occur when people use analysis for instinctive decisions or instinct for analytical decisions. Elite performers develop what researchers call expert intuition through thousands of hours of experience in their field. This isn't mystical gut feeling. It's rapid pattern recognition based on extensive training and experience. Their subconscious mind can process complex situations and identify optimal responses faster than conscious analysis. But this expert intuition only develops through deliberate practice in decision-making under progressively challenging conditions. One of the most powerful decision-making tools used by elite performers is called decision templates. These are pre-established frameworks for common decision types that eliminate the need to start from scratch under pressure. For example, an elite athlete might have decision templates for different game situations: when to take risks, when to play conservatively, when to trust teammates, and when to take individual control. These templates provide instant guidance when there's no time for analysis. Elite performers also use decision triggers that automatically initiate specific responses when certain conditions are met. These triggers are based on clear, objective criteria that can be recognized quickly under pressure. Instead of debating what to do in complex situations, they have predetermined responses that activate automatically when trigger conditions are present. This eliminates hesitation and ensures rapid response to changing circumstances. Another critical component of elite decision-making is information filtering. Under pressure, there's always more information available than you can process effectively. Elite performers have learned to identify the critical information that drives decision quality and ignore everything else. They know which factors matter most in their field and focus exclusively on those factors when making high-stakes decisions. This information filtering includes knowing when to stop gathering information and commit to a decision. Most people under pressure either make decisions too quickly without sufficient information or delay decisions too long while seeking perfect information that doesn't exist. Elite performers have developed precise timing for their decision-making process that optimizes the balance between speed and accuracy. Elite performers also understand the concept of decision confidence calibration. They've learned to accurately assess their confidence level in different types of decisions and adjust their approach accordingly. When confidence is high, they act decisively and commit fully to their choice. When confidence is moderate, they make the best decision possible while preparing to adjust quickly based on feedback. When confidence is low, they seek additional information or delay the decision if possible. But here's where elite decision-making becomes truly advanced. They've learned to make decisions in layers. Instead of trying to make perfect final decisions immediately, they make the best decision possible with current information while maintaining flexibility to adjust as new information becomes available. This layered approach allows them to act quickly while avoiding the commitment trap that locks them into suboptimal choices. Elite performers also practice decision speed training, where they make numerous low-stakes decisions under time pressure to develop their rapid decision-making capabilities. This might involve quick tactical choices during practice sessions, rapid responses to unexpected scenarios, or fast problem-solving exercises with artificial time constraints. This training builds the mental reflexes needed for high-quality, rapid decisions under actual pressure. One of the most sophisticated decision-making techniques is called probability thinking. Instead of trying to predict exact outcomes, elite performers think in terms of probabilities and expected values. They ask questions like, "What's the most likely outcome of this choice?" And "What's the worst-case scenario I can accept?" And "What option gives me the best risk-to-reward ratio?" This probabilistic thinking allows them to make good decisions even when outcomes are uncertain. Elite performers also develop decision recovery systems. For when they make suboptimal choices, they understand that no decision-making system is perfect, and that some choices will be wrong, regardless of the process used. Instead of being paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes, they develop rapid correction protocols that minimize the cost of poor decisions and maximize learning from decision errors. Finally, elite decision-makers understand the psychological aspects of choice implementation. Making the right decision is only the first step. Executing that decision with full commitment is equally important. They've learned to eliminate post-decision doubt and second-guessing that can sabotage even good choices. Once they've made a decision using their systematic process, they commit completely to that choice and focus entirely on flawless execution. The ultimate goal of elite decision-making is what might be called unconscious competence, where optimal choices become automatic responses that don't require conscious thought. At this level, decision-making becomes as natural as breathing, allowing elite performers to make consistently excellent choices while directing their conscious attention to other aspects of their performance. This automated decision-making excellence is what allows them to maintain peak performance under conditions that overwhelm everyone else. Chapter 8. The Resilience Engine. How elite performers build unbreakable mental toughness. Mental toughness isn't about being emotionless or insensitive to pain and difficulty. Elite performers understand that real mental toughness is the ability to maintain peak performance and forward progress, regardless of how difficult circumstances become. It's about developing psychological systems that function reliably under extreme stress, devastating setbacks, and prolonged adversity. Mental toughness is the difference between those who break under pressure and those who break through to new levels of achievement. The foundation of elite mental toughness is what psychologists call adversity immunity. This isn't the absence of emotional response to difficulties, but the ability to process negative emotions quickly and maintain functional behavior regardless of internal emotional states. Elite performers have learned to separate their emotional experience from their performance behavior. They can feel frustrated, disappointed, or even devastated while simultaneously taking the actions necessary for continued success. This adversity immunity is built through systematic exposure to progressively challenging situations. Elite performers don't avoid difficult circumstances. They seek them out as training opportunities for mental toughness development. They understand that resilience is like physical strength. It only develops through resistance training. Every challenge overcome builds psychological muscle that makes the next challenge more manageable. But mental toughness goes deeper than just handling individual setbacks. Elite performers develop what researchers call systematic resilience, the ability to maintain long-term progress despite multiple setbacks, extended periods of difficulty, and sustained opposition. This systematic resilience is built on several key psychological foundations that can be developed through specific mental training. The first foundation is identity independence. Most people's self-worth and identity are tied to their recent performance or current circumstances. When things go well, they feel good about themselves. When things go poorly, their self-concept is damaged. Elite performers have learned to separate their core identity from their temporary circumstances. They know who they are, regardless of what happens to them, which provides psychological stability during turbulent periods. This identity independence is developed through what might be called identity anchoring. Elite performers identify the core characteristics, values, and capabilities that define them as individuals, independent of their achievements or failures. They regularly remind themselves of these anchored identity elements, especially during difficult periods. This prevents temporary setbacks from creating lasting damage to self-concept and motivation. The second foundation of mental toughness is outcome independence. While elite performers care deeply about results and work intensively to achieve their goals, they don't allow their emotional well-being to depend entirely on specific outcomes. They understand that many factors affecting results are outside their control, so they focus their emotional investment on factors they can control: their effort, preparation, and execution. This outcome independence doesn't mean they don't care about results. It means their psychological stability doesn't collapse when results don't meet expectations. They can be disappointed by poor outcomes while maintaining the emotional resources necessary to continue working toward future success. This psychological sustainability allows them to persist through long periods of difficulty without burning out. Elite performers also develop what's called pain tolerance training. This isn't about ignoring pain or pretending difficulties don't matter. It's about increasing their capacity to function effectively while experiencing discomfort. They systematically expose themselves to various forms of discomfort: physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, and psychological discomfort, while maintaining performance standards. This pain tolerance training might include physical challenges that require continued performance despite fatigue or discomfort, emotional challenges that require maintaining composure despite frustration or disappointment, or psychological challenges that require continued effort despite uncertainty or fear. Each successful navigation of discomfort while maintaining performance builds tolerance for future difficulties. Another critical component of mental toughness is cognitive flexibility under stress. When most people encounter severe difficulties, their thinking becomes rigid, and they get stuck, using the same ineffective approaches repeatedly. Elite performers maintain mental flexibility even under extreme stress, allowing them to adapt their strategies and find new solutions when current approaches aren't working. This cognitive flexibility is developed through stress inoculation training, where they practice problem-solving and creative thinking while under various forms of pressure. They learn to maintain openness to new approaches, even when current methods have been successful in the past. This mental agility prevents them from being trapped by ineffective strategies during crisis situations. Elite performers also understand the concept of energy management as a component of mental toughness. Mental resilience isn't just about pushing through difficulties with raw determination. It's about sustaining high performance over extended periods without depleting psychological resources. They've learned to manage their mental and emotional energy strategically, knowing when to push hard and when to recover. This energy management includes developing stress recovery protocols that allow them to restore their psychological resources between challenging periods. These might include physical recovery methods, mental restoration techniques, or emotional processing practices that prevent cumulative stress from overwhelming their systems. Elite performers understand that sustainable toughness requires regular renewal, not just endless endurance. One of the most advanced aspects of mental toughness is what might be called adversity alchemy, the ability to transform difficulties into advantages. Elite performers don't just survive challenging situations. They find ways to use those situations to become stronger, smarter, or more capable. They ask questions like, "How can this difficulty make me better?" And "What opportunities does this challenge create?" This adversity alchemy requires a fundamental reframe of the relationship with difficulties. Instead of seeing challenges as obstacles to overcome, elite performers see them as raw materials for growth and development. Every difficulty becomes a potential source of increased capability rather than just a problem to solve. This reframe transforms mental toughness from defensive protection into offensive weapon for continuous improvement. Elite performers also develop team toughness when working with others. They understand that individual mental toughness is important, but group resilience often determines success in team environments. They learn to support others during difficult periods while maintaining their own psychological stability. They contribute to collective resilience while drawing strength from group solidarity during challenging times. Finally, mental toughness includes what elite performers call purpose anchor resilience. Their mental toughness is ultimately sustained by a deep connection to meaningful purposes that transcend individual comfort or convenience. When their commitment is anchored to something larger than personal pleasure or pain, they can endure extraordinary difficulties because they're serving something more important than immediate comfort. This purpose-anchored resilience provides virtually unlimited mental toughness because it connects individual effort to transcendent meaning. When your mental toughness is rooted in deep purpose rather than personal preference, there are virtually no circumstances that can break your commitment to continued progress and excellence. Chapter 9. The Flow Code. How elite performers access peak performance states at will. Flow states represent the ultimate peak performance experience. Those magical moments when everything becomes effortless, time seems to slow down, and you perform far beyond your normal capabilities. Most people experience flow rarely and unpredictably, if at all. Elite performers have decoded the conditions that create flow states and developed the ability to access these peak performance zones consistently and on demand. They've learned to engineer flow rather than hope for flow. The first thing you need to understand about flow is that it's not a mystical experience or lucky accident. It's a specific neurological state that can be triggered through precise psychological and physiological conditions. When you're in flow, your brain produces a cocktail of performance-enhancing neurochemicals including norepinephrine for focus, dopamine for motivation, anandamide for creative connections, and endorphins for persistence. This neurochemical state creates the extraordinary capabilities associated with peak performance. Elite performers understand that flow states emerge when specific conditions are met, and they've learned to create these conditions systematically, rather than waiting for them to occur naturally. The first condition is what researchers call challenge skill balance. Flow occurs when the challenge level of your activity is perfectly matched to your skill level. Too easy, and you become bored. Too difficult, and you become anxious. Elite performers continuously calibrate their challenges to maintain this optimal balance. This challenge skill balance requires constant adjustment as capabilities improve. Elite performers don't stick with familiar challenges that once produced flow states. They progressively increase difficulty to match their developing skills. They understand that flow is a moving target that requires constant recalibration to maintain peak performance access. The second condition for flow is clear goals and immediate feedback. Your brain needs to know exactly what it's trying to accomplish and whether current actions are working effectively. Elite performers create crystal clear objectives for each performance and establish feedback systems that provide immediate information about their progress. This clarity eliminates the mental confusion that prevents flow states from emerging. But here's where elite flow mastery gets sophisticated. They don't just set outcome goals. They set process goals that can be achieved through specific actions under their direct control. Instead of win the competition, they might set goals like maintain perfect technique under pressure, or execute each movement with complete precision. These process-focused goals provide the clarity needed for flow, while keeping attention directed toward controllable factors. The third condition for flow is complete present moment focus. Flow states cannot exist when your attention is divided between current actions and other mental activities like worrying about outcomes, analyzing past mistakes, or thinking about unrelated issues. Elite performers have developed extraordinary present moment attention that eliminates all mental distractions during performance. This present moment focus is developed through what might be called attention training for flow. Elite performers practice sustaining complete absorption in current activities while ignoring internal and external distractions. They learn to notice when their attention wanders and immediately redirect it to present moment experience. This attention control is perhaps the most critical skill for reliable flow access. Elite performers also understand that flow states have specific physical requirements that must be met for optimal neurochemical production. These include optimal arousal levels that energize without overwhelming proper breathing patterns that maintain oxygen flow to the brain, and physical posture that supports rather than restricts performance. They develop body awareness that allows them to optimize these physical conditions in real time. One of the most powerful techniques for flow access is what researchers call flow triggers. These are specific activities or conditions that consistently produce flow states for individual performers. Physical triggers might include specific warm-up routines or breathing patterns. Mental triggers might include particular visualization exercises or attention-focusing techniques. Environmental triggers might include specific music, locations, or social conditions. Elite performers identify their personal flow triggers through systematic experimentation and then incorporate these triggers into their performance preparation. They don't leave flow access to chance. They create the specific conditions that reliably produce peak performance states. This might involve developing pre-performance rituals that include multiple flow triggers, or creating environmental conditions that support flow emergence. But accessing flow is only half of flow mastery. Elite performers also learn to ride the flow once it begins, maintaining the state for extended periods rather than losing it quickly. This requires understanding what disrupts flow states and developing the skills to avoid or overcome flow-breaking factors. The most common flow disruptors are self-consciousness, outcome, focus, and analytical thinking during performance. Flow maintenance also requires what might be called flow state discipline. When you're in flow, performance feels so effortless that there's a temptation to consciously enjoy the experience or marvel at your capabilities. But the moment you step outside the experience to observe it, the flow state ends. Elite performers learn to stay completely immersed in process rather than becoming spectators to their own performance. Advanced flow mastery includes the ability to access different types of flow states for different performance requirements. Creative flow requires broad, open attention that can make novel connections. Athletic flow requires narrow, precise focus on technique and timing. Social flow requires flexible attention that can read and respond to interpersonal dynamics. Elite performers learn to match their flow state type to their performance demands. Elite performers also understand that flow states can be developed and strengthened over time. Like any other capability, flow access improves with practice and proper training. They regularly engage in activities specifically designed to trigger flow states, gradually expanding their ability to access peak performance zones under increasingly challenging conditions. One of the most sophisticated aspects of flow mastery is what might be called flow state recovery. Even elite performers occasionally lose flow during important performances due to unexpected distractions or psychological disruptions. Instead of accepting the loss of peak performance, they've developed techniques for quickly reaccessing flow states even after disruption. Finally, elite performers understand that flow states create a positive feedback loop that enhances future performance capabilities. Each flow experience builds confidence in your ability to perform at peak levels, which makes future flow states more accessible. The skills developed during flow states become integrated into normal performance, gradually raising your baseline capabilities. The ultimate goal of flow mastery is what might be called flow lifestyle, where peak performance states become your normal rather than exceptional experience. At this level, extraordinary performance becomes ordinary, and you operate consistently in zones that most people access only rarely. This is the true secret of elite performance, making peak states into standard operating procedure rather than lucky accidents. Chapter 10. The Recovery Revolution. How elite performers sustain peak performance without burnout. One of the biggest differences between elite performers and everyone else isn't how hard they can push themselves during peak performance. It's how effectively they recover between peak efforts. While most people either burn out from excessive intensity or plateau from insufficient challenge, elite performers have mastered the art of strategic recovery that allows them to sustain maximum effort indefinitely. They understand that peak performance isn't about constant intensity. It's about optimizing the cycle between maximum effort and complete restoration. The foundation of elite recovery is understanding that rest isn't the opposite of performance. It's an integral component of peak performance. Your nervous system can only maintain maximum output for limited periods before it requires restoration. Elite performers don't see recovery time as lost productivity. They see it as investment in future performance capability. They understand that proper recovery doesn't just restore your previous capabilities, it enhances them. But elite recovery goes far beyond just physical rest. Elite performers engage in what researchers call systematic recovery that addresses mental, emotional, physical, and neurological restoration simultaneously. They don't just stop working, they actively engage in recovery activities that optimize their restoration process and prepare them for even higher levels of future performance. Physical recovery for elite performers includes not just sleep and rest, but specific protocols for optimizing nervous system restoration. This might include strategic nutrition that supports neurotransmitter production, targeted movement that promotes circulation and nervous system balance, and environmental optimization that maximizes sleep quality and recovery efficiency. They treat recovery with the same precision and systematization that they apply to performance preparation. Mental recovery involves deliberately shifting attention away from performance-related thinking and engaging in activities that restore cognitive resources. Elite performers might practice meditation to reset their attention systems, engage in completely unrelated hobbies that use different mental capabilities, or participate in social activities that provide mental stimulation without performance pressure. This mental diversification prevents cognitive fatigue and maintains mental freshness. Emotional recovery addresses the psychological intensity that comes with sustained high performance. Elite performers regularly process the emotional demands of their work through journaling, discussion with trusted advisors, or therapeutic activities that help them maintain emotional balance. They understand that suppressing emotions during performance is often necessary, but those emotions must be processed during recovery periods to prevent psychological accumulation. One of the most sophisticated aspects of elite recovery is what might be called recovery periodization. Just as they periodize their training and performance to peak at optimal times, they periodize their recovery to match their performance cycles. They understand that different phases of their development require different types and intensities of recovery. Competition periods might require brief, intense recovery protocols, while development periods might require longer, more comprehensive restoration. Elite performers also practice micro-recovery techniques that allow them to restore their capabilities during brief breaks in extended performance periods. These might include specific breathing techniques that reset their nervous system in minutes, attention-shifting exercises that refresh mental focus, or physical movements that release tension and restore energy. These micro-recovery skills allow them to maintain peak performance over extended periods that would exhaust others. But here's where elite recovery becomes truly strategic. They use recovery periods not just to restore previous capabilities, but to upgrade their systems for enhanced future performance. During recovery, they analyze their recent performance, identify areas for improvement, and plan upgrades to their techniques, strategies, or mental approaches. Recovery becomes a time for strategic development rather than just restoration. Elite performers understand that recovery must be as disciplined as performance. They don't leave recovery to chance or wait until they feel like they need rest. They schedule recovery periods systematically and protect them as rigorously as they protect their performance time. They understand that skipping recovery doesn't just affect current performance, it compounds over time and eventually destroys their ability to perform at peak levels. This disciplined approach to recovery includes what might be called recovery rituals that signal to their nervous system that it's time to shift from performance mode to restoration mode. These might include specific activities, environmental changes, or mental practices that trigger the psychological and physiological changes needed for optimal recovery. These rituals create clear boundaries between performance and recovery periods. Elite performers also monitor their recovery effectiveness through various indicators that tell them whether their restoration is complete. These might include sleep quality metrics, energy level assessments, motivation measurements, or performance capability tests. They don't guess whether they're recovered. They measure it systematically and adjust their recovery protocols based on objective feedback. One of the most advanced recovery techniques is what researchers call active recovery, where instead of complete inactivity, elite performers engage in low-intensity activities that promote restoration while maintaining some level of engagement with their performance systems. This might include light technical work, strategic planning, or skill development activities that feel effortless but contribute to long-term capability enhancement. Elite performers also understand the social and environmental components of effective recovery. They create recovery environments that support restoration rather than create additional stress. They surround themselves with people who understand and support their recovery needs. They design their living and working spaces to promote relaxation and restoration when they need it most. Finally, elite recovery includes what might be called recovery from recovery, recognizing when rest periods have been sufficient and it's time to re-engage with peak performance activities. Elite performers don't extend recovery periods beyond what's needed because they understand that excessive recovery can lead to loss of edge and diminished performance capability. They develop sensitivity to the optimal transition point between recovery and renewed intensity. The ultimate goal of recovery mastery is sustainable peak performance, the ability to maintain extraordinary output indefinitely without experiencing burnout, injury, or performance degradation. When recovery is as masterful as performance, elite performers can sustain levels of achievement that would be impossible through intensity alone. This is perhaps the ultimate competitive advantage: the ability to perform at maximum levels while everyone else is limited by their recovery capabilities. Chapter 11. The Visualization Vault. How elite performers program success through mental imagery. Mental imagery is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood tools in peak performance psychology. Most people think visualization is about imagining success and hoping it becomes reality. Elite performers understand that visualization is actually a sophisticated neurological training system that programs their nervous system for precise execution, builds neural pathways for complex skills, and creates unshakable confidence through mental rehearsal. They don't just visualize success, they engineer it through systematic mental programming. The foundation of elite visualization is understanding that your brain cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real experiences when it comes to motor learning and skill development. When you visualize performing a skill with sufficient detail and emotional intensity, you activate the same neural networks that fire during actual performance. This means you can literally practice and improve your skills through mental rehearsal, building competence and confidence without physical execution. But elite visualization goes far beyond simple mental practice. Elite performers use what researchers call systematic mental modeling, where they create detailed mental blueprints of perfect performance that serve as templates for real execution. These mental models include not just the actions they'll take, but the thoughts they'll think, the emotions they'll feel, and the sensations they'll experience during flawless performance. Creating these mental models requires extraordinary attention to detail. Elite performers don't just imagine themselves performing well, they visualize specific technical elements, precise timing, optimal body position, and exact environmental conditions. They include sensory details like the feel of equipment, the sound of their environment, and even the smell and temperature of their performance space. This multi-sensory approach creates mental rehearsals that are virtually indistinguishable from real experience. Elite performers also understand the difference between outcome visualization and process visualization. Outcome visualization involves imagining successful results like winning competitions or achieving goals. While this can be motivating, it doesn't provide the specific programming needed for skill development. Process visualization involves mentally rehearsing the exact sequence of actions, decisions, and techniques that create successful outcomes. This process focus provides the detailed neural programming that translates into improved real-world performance. One of the most sophisticated visualization techniques used by elite performers is called progressive visualization, where they mentally rehearse their skills under increasingly difficult conditions. They start by visualizing perfect execution under ideal circumstances, then gradually add distractions, pressure, and complications to their mental rehearsals. This progression builds psychological resilience and prepares them to maintain their performance quality regardless of circumstances. Elite performers also use corrective visualization to eliminate technical errors and optimize their performance. When they identify mistakes or inefficiencies in their execution, they use mental rehearsal to reprogram these movements with correct technique. They visualize themselves catching the mistake as it begins and immediately correcting it with perfect form. This mental correction often transfers to real performance more effectively than physical practice alone. But visualization mastery extends beyond individual skill development. Elite performers use strategic visualization to mentally rehearse their approach to complex, multi-phase performances. They visualize their entire competition strategy, business presentation sequence, or performance timeline from start to finish. This strategic mental rehearsal helps them maintain focus and direction during extended performance periods, while preparing for smooth transitions between different phases of their performance. Another advanced application is adversity visualization, where elite performers mentally rehearse their responses to potential problems, setbacks, and worst-case scenarios. Instead of only visualizing perfect performance, they prepare for equipment failures, unexpected opposition, physical discomfort, and psychological challenges. This adversity preparation eliminates the shock and paralysis that derails most people when things don't go according to plan. Elite performers also practice emotional visualization, where they rehearse not just their physical actions, but their emotional responses during performance. They visualize themselves maintaining composure under pressure, staying confident after mistakes, and generating energy during fatigue. This emotional rehearsal is often more important than technical rehearsal because emotions drive performance quality more than techniques do. One of the most powerful aspects of elite visualization is success anchoring, where they create detailed mental records of their best performances and use these memories as templates for future excellence. They don't just remember that they performed well. They analyze exactly what they were thinking, feeling, and doing during their peak moments. Then they use visualization to access these optimal states on demand during future performances. Elite performers also understand the timing and frequency of optimal visualization practice. They don't just visualize occasionally when they feel motivated. They engage in systematic mental rehearsal on a daily basis. They might use brief visualization sessions before each practice to prime their nervous system, extended visualization sessions during rest periods to build new skills, and specific visualization protocols immediately before performance to activate their optimal state. The quality of visualization matters more than the quantity. Elite performers develop what might be called cinema quality mental imagery that is so vivid and detailed it feels completely real. They practice enhancing the clarity, speed, and emotional intensity of their mental imagery until their visualizations become as compelling as actual memories. This visualization quality is what creates the neural programming necessary for performance transfer. Elite performers also use perspective switching in their visualization practice, alternating between first-person and third-person viewpoints during mental rehearsal. First-person visualization, where you see through your own eyes during imagined performance, is optimal for motor learning and technique development. Third-person visualization, where you watch yourself performing from an external perspective, is optimal for strategic analysis and overall performance evaluation. Finally, elite visualization includes integration rehearsal, where they mentally practice transitioning from visualization into actual performance. They rehearse the psychological shift from mental preparation to physical execution, ensuring that their visualized confidence and clarity transfers seamlessly into real-world action. This integration practice eliminates the gap between mental preparation and physical performance that limits many performers. The ultimate goal of visualization mastery is creating mental performance insurance, where your visualized preparation is so thorough and realistic that you've essentially already performed successfully before you ever step into the actual situation. This level of mental preparation creates unshakable confidence and flawless execution because your nervous system recognizes the real performance as familiar territory that you've already mastered mentally. Chapter 12. The Social Advantage. How elite performers master human dynamics to accelerate success. Elite performers understand that virtually every significant achievement requires navigating complex human dynamics and leveraging social systems for maximum advantage. While technical skills and individual effort are important, the ability to read people, influence outcomes, and build strategic relationships often determines who reaches the highest levels of success. They've mastered the social dimension of performance in ways that multiply their individual capabilities exponentially. The foundation of elite social performance is what psychologists call social intelligence, the ability to understand human behavior, predict social outcomes, and influence interpersonal dynamics strategically. This isn't manipulation or deception. It's sophisticated understanding of how human psychology operates in social contexts. Elite performers study human nature with the same intensity they study their technical skills, because social mastery often determines technical opportunity. Elite performers develop extraordinary people-reading abilities that allow them to quickly assess others' motivations, emotional states, and decision-making patterns. They notice micro-expressions, body language signals, and vocal patterns that reveal what people are really thinking and feeling beneath their conscious communication. This social awareness provides crucial intelligence for making strategic decisions about relationships, negotiations, and collaborative opportunities. But social intelligence goes deeper than just reading people. Elite performers understand the underlying psychological principles that drive human behavior and use this knowledge to create win-win outcomes in their interactions. They understand concepts like reciprocity, social proof, authority, and commitment consistency, and they apply these principles ethically to influence positive outcomes in their relationships and collaborations. One of the most powerful social skills used by elite performers is what might be called strategic empathy. This involves genuinely understanding others' perspectives, needs, and challenges, while simultaneously maintaining focus on your own objectives. Strategic empathy allows you to find solutions that serve everyone's interests, rather than forcing zero-sum competitions where someone must lose for you to win. This strategic empathy is particularly powerful in negotiations, team dynamics, and leadership situations. When you truly understand what others need and want, you can often find creative solutions that give them what they need while advancing your own goals. Elite performers become masters at identifying these win-win possibilities that others miss because they're only focused on their own agenda. Elite performers also understand the concept of social positioning, strategically managing how they're perceived by different groups and individuals. They understand that different situations require different social personas, and they develop the flexibility to adapt their communication style and behavior to optimize their effectiveness in various social contexts. This social positioning isn't about being fake or manipulative. It's about emphasizing different aspects of your authentic self, depending on what's most relevant and effective in each situation. A leader might emphasize their decisive, authoritative qualities in crisis situations while emphasizing their collaborative, listening qualities during creative brainstorming sessions. Both qualities are genuine, but strategic emphasis creates optimal social dynamics. Elite performers also master what researchers call social leverage, the ability to amplify their individual capabilities through strategic relationships and network effects. They understand that your network often determines your net worth, both financially and in terms of opportunities, resources, and support systems. They invest systematically in building relationships that provide mutual value over long time periods. This social leverage includes understanding how to provide value to others before asking for anything in return. Elite performers become valuable connections for others by sharing resources, making introductions, and offering assistance without expecting immediate reciprocation. This approach builds long-term social capital that provides exponential returns over time. Another critical component of social mastery is conflict navigation. Elite performers understand that conflict is inevitable in any worthwhile pursuit, and they develop sophisticated skills for managing disagreements, resolving disputes, and maintaining relationships even through difficult conversations. They don't avoid conflict. They navigate it strategically to strengthen relationships and achieve better outcomes. This conflict navigation includes the ability to separate issues from personalities, focus on shared objectives rather than individual positions, and find creative solutions that address underlying needs rather than surface demands. Elite performers often turn conflicts into opportunities for deeper understanding and stronger collaborative relationships. Elite performers also understand team dynamics optimization when working in group settings. They can quickly assess group personalities, identify natural leaders and followers, and position themselves to maximize group effectiveness. They understand how to contribute their unique capabilities while supporting others in contributing theirs, creating synergistic effects that exceed the sum of individual contributions. This team optimization includes understanding how to communicate in ways that motivate and inspire others rather than just informing them. Elite performers learn to frame their ideas in terms of shared benefits, use storytelling to make complex concepts compelling, and create emotional engagement that drives commitment rather than just compliance. One of the most advanced social skills is what might be called influence without authority, the ability to guide outcomes and inspire action even when you don't have formal power over others. This skill is increasingly important in modern collaborative environments. where success depends on voluntary cooperation rather than hierarchical command structures. Influence without authority requires building credibility through consistent competence and reliability. Creating emotional connection through genuine interest in others' success, and providing compelling vision that makes people excited to participate in your initiatives. Elite performers become magnets for talented people who want to be part of their projects and vision. Elite performers also develop social recovery skills for repairing relationships when things go wrong. They understand that mistakes, misunderstandings, and conflicts will occur in any complex social environment. And they have systematic approaches for acknowledging problems, taking appropriate responsibility, and rebuilding trust and collaboration. Finally, elite social mastery includes what might be called legacy thinking in relationships. Elite performers don't just focus on immediate social transactions, they think about the long-term trajectory of their relationships and how current interactions contribute to lasting professional and personal connections. They understand that every interaction either builds or diminishes their social capital, and they approach relationships with this long-term perspective. The ultimate goal of social mastery is creating relationship accelerated achievement, where your social skills multiply your individual capabilities and create opportunities that would be impossible through solo effort alone. When you master human dynamics, you gain access to collective intelligence, shared resources, and collaborative possibilities that can accelerate your progress exponentially while creating value for everyone involved. Chapter 13. The Excellence Engine: How Elite Performers Create Sustainable Long-Term Mastery. The difference between temporary success and lasting excellence is that elite performers think in decades rather than seasons. While most people focus on short-term achievements and immediate results, elite performers design their entire approach around sustainable long-term mastery that compounds over time. They understand that true excellence isn't about peak moments. It's about building systems that generate consistent, high-level performance across years and decades of sustained effort. The foundation of long-term excellence is what researchers call mastery orientation versus performance orientation. Performance-oriented individuals focus on demonstrating their current abilities and achieving specific outcomes. Mastery-oriented individuals focus on continuously developing their capabilities and expanding their potential. This fundamental difference in orientation creates completely different approaches to training, competition, and career development. Elite performers with mastery orientation embrace challenges that stretch their capabilities rather than avoiding situations where they might not excel immediately. They see temporary failures and setbacks as information about areas needing development rather than evidence of permanent limitations. This orientation creates continuous growth trajectories that compound over decades of sustained effort. But long-term mastery requires more than just the right mindset. It requires systematic approaches to skill development that prevent plateaus and ensure continuous improvement. Elite performers use what might be called progressive mastery, where they continuously elevate their standards and challenges as their capabilities improve. They never become satisfied with their current level of performance because they understand that satisfaction leads to stagnation. This progressive mastery involves regularly assessing their current capabilities, identifying the next level of performance they want to achieve, and systematically developing the specific skills needed to reach that level. They break complex mastery into manageable development phases while maintaining focus on the long-term vision of excellence they're building toward. Elite performers also understand the concept of compound skill development, where they focus on building foundational capabilities that enhance everything else they do. These might be mental skills like attention control, emotional skills like resilience, or physical skills like movement efficiency. By continuously improving these foundational capabilities, they create exponential improvements in all their specific performance areas. One of the most sophisticated aspects of long-term excellence is adaptive mastery, the ability to evolve and improve as the demands of your field change over time. Elite performers don't just master current requirements, they anticipate future developments and prepare themselves for changing demands. They understand that what creates success today may not create success tomorrow. So they build adaptive capabilities that allow them to excel under changing conditions. This adaptive mastery requires what might be called learning agility, the ability to quickly acquire new skills and adjust to new challenges throughout their career. Elite performers become masters of learning itself, developing meta skills that allow them to accelerate their development in any new area they need to master. They understand that the most important skill is the ability to develop new skills rapidly and effectively. Elite performers also practice legacy building throughout their careers. Not just at the end, they think about how their current actions and achievements contribute to their long-term reputation and lasting impact. They make decisions based on how they want to be remembered and what kind of influence they want to have on their field, their colleagues, and future generations. This legacy thinking influences everything from how they treat competitors and colleagues to how they approach their training and development. They understand that true excellence includes not just personal achievement, but contribution to the advancement of their entire field. They become mentors, innovators, and leaders who elevate standards for everyone around them. Another critical component of long-term excellence is energy sustainability. Elite performers understand that achieving excellence requires enormous energy investment over extended periods, and they develop systems for maintaining their physical, mental, and emotional resources throughout decades-long careers. They don't just manage their energy for individual performances. They manage it for career-long sustainability. This energy sustainability includes strategic career planning that balances intense periods of development and competition with recovery and renewal phases. They understand the natural cycles of their development and plan their major efforts to align with these cycles rather than trying to maintain maximum intensity constantly. Elite performers also develop philosophical foundations that sustain their commitment to excellence through inevitable difficult periods. They clarify their deepest values, purposes, and meanings that make sustained effort worthwhile, even when external rewards are delayed or uncertain. These philosophical foundations provide the internal motivation needed for decades of sustained high-level effort. But long-term excellence also requires success management skills for handling achievement without becoming complacent or losing motivation. Elite performers understand that success can be as dangerous as failure if it leads to reduced effort or lowered standards. They develop systems for maintaining their drive and development momentum even after achieving significant success. This success management includes continuously setting new challenges that maintain their growth trajectory, surrounding themselves with people who challenge them to continue improving, and regularly recommitting to their long-term vision of excellence rather than becoming satisfied with current achievements. Elite performers also practice wisdom cultivation throughout their careers, not just accumulating skills and achievements, but developing deep understanding of their field, human nature, and the principles that create lasting success. They become students of excellence itself, studying what separates truly great performers from merely good ones, and continuously refining their understanding of mastery. Finally, long-term excellence requires what might be called generational thinking. Considering how your development and achievements contribute to advancing your field for future generations. Elite performers understand that true mastery includes not just personal excellence, but creating platforms for others to achieve even greater excellence than you have achieved. The ultimate goal of the excellence engine is creating compound mastery, where your skills, reputation, influence, and impact multiply over time rather than just accumulating. When you master the long-term approach to excellence, you create trajectories of achievement that would be impossible through short-term thinking alone. You become not just successful but truly great, leaving lasting legacies that continue to create value long after your active career ends. Chapter 14. The Leadership Circuit. How elite performers inspire others to greatness. The highest level of elite performance isn't just individual excellence, it's the ability to elevate others to levels of achievement they never thought possible. Elite performers understand that true mastery includes developing the leadership capabilities to inspire, guide, and accelerate the development of everyone around them. They become force multipliers who create environments where excellence spreads, and entire teams or organizations reach unprecedented levels of performance. The foundation of elite leadership is what researchers call authentic authority, leadership influence that comes from genuine competence and character rather than position or power. Elite performer leaders have earned the right to guide others because they've demonstrated mastery in their own performance while maintaining integrity and commitment to shared success. Their authority is granted by others rather than demanded or assumed. This authentic authority is built through consistent demonstration of excellence under pressure, reliable decision-making in difficult situations, and genuine investment in others' success and development. Elite leaders don't just tell others what to do, they show others how to excel through their own example, and then provide the guidance and support needed for others to achieve similar excellence. But elite leadership goes far beyond personal example. Elite performer leaders develop sophisticated abilities to read group dynamics, identify individual motivations and capabilities, and create environments that bring out the best in everyone involved. They understand that different people are motivated by different factors, and they learn to customize their leadership approach to maximize each individual's contribution and development. This individualized leadership requires what might be called psychological sophistication, deep understanding of human motivation, development, and performance psychology. Elite leaders study their team members as carefully as they study their technical skills, because they understand that human development often determines technical outcomes. They become experts at identifying potential in others and creating conditions for that potential to flourish. Elite performer leaders also master the art of vision casting, creating compelling pictures of collective achievement that inspire others to commit extraordinary effort toward shared goals. They don't just set targets or assign tasks. They help others see how their individual contributions fit into meaningful larger purposes that make sustained effort feel worthwhile and fulfilling. This vision casting includes the ability to connect daily activities to larger meanings and purposes, helping others understand how their work contributes to significant outcomes. Elite leaders make people feel like they're part of something important rather than just completing assignments or fulfilling job requirements. One of the most powerful leadership capabilities is development acceleration, the ability to speed up others' learning and skill development through strategic guidance and feedback. Elite performer leaders don't just manage current performance, they actively develop future capabilities in their team members. They become multipliers who help others achieve more than they could accomplish alone. This development acceleration includes providing challenging opportunities that stretch people's capabilities, offering specific feedback that accelerates learning, and creating psychological safety that allows people to take risks and make mistakes without fear of punishment. Elite leaders understand that development requires both challenge and support, and they provide optimal combinations of both. Elite performer leaders also develop collective performance orchestration skills, the ability to coordinate individual excellences into group achievements that exceed what any individual could accomplish alone. They understand group dynamics, team psychology, and collaborative systems that create synergistic effects rather than just additive contributions. This collective orchestration includes understanding how different personality types and skill sets can complement each other, how to manage conflicts constructively so they strengthen rather than weaken team effectiveness, and how to maintain group focus and energy during extended collaborative efforts. Elite leaders create teams that are greater than the sum of their parts. Another critical leadership capability is cultural engineering, the ability to shape group values, standards, and behaviors that support sustained excellence. Elite performer leaders don't just work within existing cultures, they actively create cultures that support the levels of performance they want to achieve. They understand that culture often determines individual and group capabilities more than training or resources do. This cultural engineering includes establishing clear standards for behavior and performance, recognizing and rewarding actions that support excellence, and addressing issues that undermine group effectiveness quickly and decisively. Elite leaders create environments where high performance becomes normal rather than exceptional. Elite performer leaders also master decision-making facilitation, helping groups make better decisions than any individual could make alone while maintaining efficiency and momentum. They understand when to make decisions themselves and when to involve others, how to gather diverse perspectives without creating analysis paralysis, and how to build commitment to decisions once they're made. This decision-making facilitation includes creating processes that capture collective intelligence while maintaining clear accountability and direction. Elite leaders help groups think together more effectively than they could think separately, while ensuring that thinking translates into coordinated action. One of the most advanced leadership skills is crisis leadership, maintaining group effectiveness and morale during extremely difficult periods when most teams would fragment or collapse. Elite performer leaders understand that crisis situations reveal and develop leadership capabilities that can't be developed during normal operations. They use difficult periods as opportunities to strengthen rather than just survive. Crisis leadership includes maintaining clarity and direction when circumstances are uncertain, providing emotional stability when others are reactive or panicked, and finding opportunities for growth and development even during adversity. Elite leaders help groups emerge from crises stronger and more capable than they were before the difficulties began. Elite performer leaders also develop successor development capabilities, actively preparing others to eventually exceed their own leadership effectiveness. They understand that true leadership success is measured by the achievements of those who come after you, not just what you accomplish during your own tenure. They create leadership legacies that multiply their impact across generations. Finally, elite leadership includes influence expansion, the ability to extend your positive impact beyond your direct team or organization to affect entire industries or fields. Elite performer leaders become thought leaders and innovators who influence standards and practices far beyond their immediate sphere of control. They help raise the level of excellence in entire professions or areas of human achievement. The ultimate goal of elite leadership is creating excellence ecosystems, environments where high performance becomes self-sustaining and continuously improving rather than dependent on any single individual's effort or presence. When you master this level of leadership, you create lasting positive changes that continue to generate value and elevate human achievement long after your direct involvement ends. Chapter 15. The Integration Protocol: How to Transform Everything You've Learned into Unstoppable Performance. You now possess the complete mental architecture that separates elite performers from everyone else. You understand the psychological principles, mental techniques, and systematic approaches that create sustained excellence in any field. But knowledge without application is merely entertainment. The difference between those who read about elite performance and those who achieve it is integration, the systematic process of transforming insights into instincts and techniques into automatic behaviors. The foundation of successful integration is understanding that elite performance isn't about perfecting individual skills. It's about creating an integrated psychological system where all your mental capabilities work together seamlessly. Elite performers don't just use confidence techniques or attention skills or resilience strategies in isolation. They develop integrated mental systems where each capability enhances and supports every other capability. This integration process begins with what might be called foundation prioritization. While all the mental skills we've discussed are important, you cannot develop them all simultaneously without diluting your focus and slowing your progress. Elite performers identify the foundational capabilities that will have the greatest impact on their specific performance challenges and develop those skills first before expanding to additional areas. For most performers, the foundational skills are attention control, present moment focus, and failure immunity. These three capabilities form the psychological infrastructure that supports every other elite performance skill. Once you've developed reliable ability to direct your attention, maintain present moment awareness, and process setbacks constructively, every other mental skill becomes easier to develop and more effective to implement. The integration process uses what researchers call skill stacking, where you layer new capabilities onto existing strengths rather than trying to develop everything from zero simultaneously. You might start by developing basic attention control through daily meditation practice. Then add visualization techniques. Once your attention is stable, then incorporate flow state triggers once your visualization is reliable. This stacking approach creates cumulative development where each new skill enhances every previous skill. But effective integration requires more than just skill development. It requires context application. systematically practicing your mental skills in the specific situations where you need to use them. Mental skills developed in comfortable practice environments don't automatically transfer to high-pressure performance situations. You must deliberately practice your psychological techniques under progressively challenging conditions that match your actual performance demands. This context application includes what might be called pressure inoculation, gradually exposing yourself to increasingly stressful situations while maintaining your mental skill usage. You might practice attention control during minor stressful situations, then moderate pressure situations, then high-stakes scenarios that closely match your most challenging performance environments. This progressive exposure builds the psychological strength needed to maintain elite mental skills when it matters most. Elite integration also requires systematic measurement of your mental skill development. You cannot improve what you don't measure. And mental skills are often more difficult to assess than technical skills. Elite performers develop specific indicators that tell them whether their psychological capabilities are improving, stabilizing, or declining. They track their progress systematically rather than relying on subjective impressions or occasional feedback. These measurement systems might include daily ratings of attention quality, weekly assessments of confidence levels, monthly evaluations of resilience under pressure, or performance reviews that specifically analyze psychological factors rather than just technical outcomes. This systematic measurement allows you to adjust your development focus based on objective feedback about your integration progress. One of the most sophisticated aspects of integration is adaptive customization, modifying the general principles and techniques to match your specific personality, learning style, and performance context. Elite performers don't just copy others' approaches. They experiment with different applications and modifications until they find the specific combination that works optimally for their unique situation. This customization process includes understanding your natural psychological tendencies and working with them rather than against them. If you're naturally analytical, your visualization might be more technical and detailed. If you're naturally emotional, your confidence building might emphasize feeling-based approaches. If you're naturally social, your mental training might include more collaborative elements. The key is adapting elite principles to your authentic psychological style. Integration also requires habit architecture, designing your daily routines and environmental systems to support consistent mental skill practice rather than relying on motivation or willpower alone. Elite performers create automatic systems that make mental training inevitable rather than optional. They build psychological skill development into their existing schedules and environments, rather than trying to add it on top of everything else. This habit architecture might include morning routines that include mental preparation activities, practice sessions that always include psychological skill work, or evening reviews that assess both technical and mental performance elements. The goal is making mental skill development as automatic and consistent as physical skill development. Advanced integration includes performance philosophy development, clarifying the deep principles and values that will guide your approach to elite performance over the long term. This philosophy provides consistency and direction that helps you make good decisions about your development, even when circumstances change or challenges become difficult. Your performance philosophy might include principles about how you'll handle success and failure, what standards you'll maintain regardless of external pressure, how you'll balance individual achievement with collaborative contribution, and what legacy you want to create through your performance excellence. This philosophical foundation prevents you from losing your way during difficult periods or becoming complacent during successful periods. The final stage of integration is what might be called unconscious competence, where elite mental skills become as automatic and natural as breathing. At this level, you don't have to consciously remember to use confidence techniques or attention control methods. They become your natural way of thinking and operating under all conditions. This unconscious competence is developed through thousands of hours of deliberate practice in applying mental skills during actual performance situations. Eventually, elite psychological capabilities become part of your identity rather than techniques you use. You don't just have confidence, you are confident. You don't just use attention control, you are naturally focused. You don't just handle pressure well, you thrive under pressure. The ultimate goal of integration is transformation from someone who knows about elite performance to someone who embodies elite performance. When integration is complete, you don't have to think about performing at elite levels. It becomes your natural way of operating in all challenging situations. You've developed what might be called automatic excellence, where peak performance becomes your standard operating procedure rather than something you have to achieve. This is the true secret of elite performers. They've integrated all these psychological capabilities so thoroughly that excellence feels effortless and natural. They've transformed temporary techniques into permanent identity changes that generate sustained high performance across decades of achievement. When you complete this integration process, you don't just perform like an elite, you think like an elite. And thinking like an elite automatically generates elite-level results in everything you do. The choice is now yours. You can treat this information as interesting knowledge to think about, or you can begin the systematic integration process that will transform you into the elite performer you're capable of becoming. Elite performers are not born. They're built through systematic application of the psychological principles you now understand. Your transformation begins the moment you decide to start integrating rather than just consuming. The mental edge is waiting for you to claim it.